monkey thing. Oh.
Sorry, it's 5 o'clock.
Oh, it automatically does it?
It kicked on.
Okay.
I didn't. Oh, okay, cool. I set it up like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think when you go in, just set up a free account. It'll say, ask you constantly, like if you want to upgrade. Just go in there, set up an account, go in and pick just one of the human resources. I think the one that I picked was called Employee Performance Template. And what I did for myself was I went through and answered the questions so that I could print out what it looked like, how it showed me the information. And then I printed out the LPI Observer questions so that you could see, okay, like for example, what I thought was really interesting in comparing the two is that the LPI Observer is more guided leading questions, whereas with the Survey Monkey, it's pretty generic, rate them between 1 and 10, but then there's just a couple of sort of open-ended questions that it may not ask you to go as in depth in your reflection of the employee because they're just really vague questions. For example, please list any areas where this employee is doing particularly well. I mean, that's kind of vague, whereas in the LPI Observer, it's asking really specific questions like, do they make it a point to let people know about his or her confidence in their abilities? Do they appeal to others to share an exciting dream of the future? Do they treat others with dignity and respect? I liked that the LPI Observer just seems to be a more comprehensive look at the individual's traits and characteristics, etc., than the Survey Monkey is sort of general.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, are you there, Jason?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I don't know why my video is not working. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Just a sec. I think sometimes it's like on my MacBook, sometimes the camera like times out or something.
Oh.
I think maybe is what happens, but just a sec. Let me go under the settings. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
I have to tell you that Survey Monkey too, if you ever, especially like with the sorority or any other organizations that you're leading and want some kind of a quick way to tally everybody's opinions, or I've used Survey Monkey a lot. It's awesome.
Okay. I didn't know like it had so many templates available.
It is so, there's so many different ways that you can use it to gather information. And the great part about it is it puts everything together. You can do pie charts or graphs, or it helps just kind of give you a sense of what I use it as a dashboard, frankly, to not only just check in and see how people are feeling, but in fundraising, I've used it a lot to say, okay, this is how I'm going to ask those questions that tell me if people are getting fundraising fatigue. So,
hey guys, I'm going to flip over, by the way, sorry to interrupt. I'm going to flip over to another computer and see if it works. So,
okay, yeah, sure.
All right. See you in a second.
No trouble. Okay.
So today what we're doing is just going through those questions, right?
Yeah, the co-mentoring questions, the directions this week were pretty lengthy, I thought.
Yeah.
It took me a good long while to get through preparing.
So who are you? What do you stand for? What do you always stand for?
I really like this particular module because it is so focused on the importance of values. I
Yeah.
feel like, especially in professional settings, I mean, maybe I'm off base here, but it seems like so many people don't even want to bring in those personal values. They think there's some persona or way they're supposed to be in the workplace. And I'm always like, you know, if honesty or assertiveness or something like that is something you value, then bring it to the workplace. Like, you don't have to be a particular way. There's no rules.
Right.
Did you go through and put together your 5 most important values?
Yeah, that I did. The only thing that I didn't, I guess, go into depth in was the Survey Monkey part. But I pulled it up now. I have it up and
Oh, good.
I can see the different questions and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's on the template that I pulled up, I think there's only 10 questions.
Yeah, which one did you say you pulled up?
The employee performance template.
Okay. I pulled up the entry interview template and yeah, it's about 12 questions.
Yeah, there aren't very many questions. Whereas like that LPI observer, I mean, there's 30.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hey, Jason, we can see you just fine. How about hear you?
Yep. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Good. I'll just have my laptop up for like reference. There we go. That'll work. All right. So you guys are already talking about SurveyMonkey, I hear, right?
Yeah. Did you have a chance to look at it?
I did. At first I didn't really understand what it was like about, because it, like, I went and chose under the, you know how they said one of the things was like human resources. What was one of the categories? I chose one of the ones he had listed on there and took like a 10, because we're supposed to take, correct me if I'm wrong, we're supposed to take the 10 question survey and then compare it to the LPI, right? Compared to how those questions are. Yeah. So is SurveyMonkey, it sounds like you've used it before, Dawn, before this class?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is it basically just a way for you to build your own surveys to give to other people? Is that what it's kind of the whole intention?
Exactly. And it can be, I mean, I've used it for variety. I was just saying to Daniela that I've even used it for, like, if people are getting fundraising fatigue, I'll send out something that just asks some really poignant questions of, you know, how do you feel about receiving messages? How do you feel about the way that others seem to be donating or interested in the campaign? It's just a nice, quick way to gather some information in a pretty generic way. And I use the dashboard a lot to compare and contrast in between, like, okay, I had XYZ number of people say they don't mind that they're receiving so many messages, but of those people, like, how many have donated? You know, it helps me sort of dig deeper without having to just come out and ask those questions that you sometimes want to ask, but you feel like it might not be okay.
Not
and
appropriate.
In this particular case, I was saying to Daniela that what was fascinating to me is with I printed out the employee performance template.
That's the one. Yep. That's the one I looked at, by the way.
I mean, it's just, you like you said, it's only like 10 questions, but it's also really vague. Yeah. Whereas the LPI Observer, I feel like it asks really poignant questions and makes you dive a little deeper on reflecting upon the person in specific ways instead of just these generic, hey, do they do a good job?
That's exactly what I thought when I finished. That was the first right off the bat, like, major you know, difference I saw between the two is you expand way more on the LPI, even if literally in just physical text alone between each category on the LPI alone was just going into far more depth, just far more wording. So
And which one did you pull up,
Daniela? You're talking Daniela. Yeah.
I did the entry level or the entry interview template.
Which I suspect is probably asking some pretty specific questions about the candidate. Is that it? Like,
Yes, so these are more open-ended questions on, I think, like specific examples of experience,
mm-hmm,
as opposed to like feelings and values.
mm-hmm,
Because I felt like the LPI was that too. It was very focused on values
yeah.
and feelings and things like that, as opposed to the interview template. It's more so speak on your experience kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally. One of the questions that I thought was so interesting on the LPI was, and I don't know why this one stuck out to me, but it's number 14, treats others with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
For me, my first glance at that was, I wonder how that ties into the values that I put forward in my 5 values. But I love this question because I think that that's totally separate than some of the more traditional ways that we look at the way people treat each other in the workplace. I was trying to touch on this a little bit when we were talking, Daniela, but like the whole concept of treating people with dignity and respect, I feel like sometimes that gets overlooked. Like these questions we ask in the workplace are more, do they explain things well? When you need support, do they support you? But this one is just so about being human and kind and humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just love that question.
Right.
Me too. I feel like that's like, if I could sum up my 5 values, it would be that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like I could incorporate all of my values into that statement.
What are your 5 values? Do you guys mind if we jump to that?
Yeah. Let me go grab mine because I actually have mine written down somewhere else. So I'm going to go grab just a
Yeah, go for
Yeah. It's so funny that you're having that same kind of thought about this, your 5 values being in there too. Like for me, that one was, I loved that question. I thought, yay, this is what I want to ask people specifically. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're respected and treated kindly?
Yeah. I just always liked that. Like when I was little, I remember everyone saying like that's like the golden rule, like treat others the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
It goes for adults as well.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you feel like in the workplace, that's sort of one of those questions where nobody really says that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, Starbucks, looking at them as an example, I think that's part of their sort of core values or the way that they talk to things, but I'm not sure that that's something managers or the employees or anybody specifically focuses on, being respectful and treating each other with dignity in like a very purposeful way.
Well, I forget. I know I work at Starbucks. Am I the only one, or is Daniela? Are you as well? No, I'm the only one.
I just drink from there every day.
You just drink from there. Okay, Okay, so remember, I'm like between 2 classes, and then in my other class, like I'm in a group of 5, and 4 of the 5 are Starbucks. So I just like try to keep it all straight. Well, and ever since I've been doing ASU like online, like, and probably 70% of the people are like Starbucks people. You've probably seen that going through OGL, that you see it all the time. Yeah. So
why is that? Is there like a specific program for this specific major?
Honestly, no, which is weird because I don't know if it's just that a strong, vast majority of ASU online are just Starbucks employees simply because Starbucks offers the online program. But there's probably at least 30 different majors as a Starbucks employee you can choose from. So why organizational? But maybe it's just because organizational leadership might be one of the more general but super useful degrees out of that. And I think there's a lot of people who actually go and take advantage of that, benefit that you get, free schooling. I think they do that. And I think because they want to advance, especially in Starbucks. So I think that is a very good route to go, leadership route. Mine's not directly because I want to. I'm not writing it off as something that like I, do or don't want to do. It's up in the air, but yeah, maybe that's one big reason too. I think that's just that this major has a huge draw to people who want to promote up within the company. So
it sounds fancy too.
Right. Now, you guys were talking about the whole, respect in the workplace. Now, I think there's two, and from my experience, there's two different kind of respects. I think there's this baseline respect is what I think we're talking about, which is like the general humanity, being kind to one another, treating each other with respect. And then there's another level of like, anyone in a job will see this, that if you come into a job and typically, like, especially in my experience at Starbucks, a lot of times there's this earned respect that has to happen, but that earned respect is based off of what's your work ethic, what's your are you, a timely person, are you this and that, like, are you dependable? And so I think there's a baseline respect, is once again, which I think is what we're talking about. And then I think on top of that, there's this additional kind of earned respect that you can have. And it's actually something I've learned, that if I've ever seen someone promote into a management position, because I'm in a management position myself, but I've seen other people who move into management, but they really like have a hard time of earning respect right away, because for one, and like I said, I think this happens in all jobs, you're taking somebody who is, say, on an equal playing field with their peers, like in terms of where they were as level. You see someone promote up instantly, and it's not right. It shouldn't be right, but a lot of times your peers instantly, they put a target on your back as being that person. Like, okay, well now, I don't know if it's like, oh, they're better than me, they're in this higher position, they have say of what I do, there's this whole thing. And and I've always tell people who are doing that, who are like looking to promote, I'm like, I can't promise right when you step into a promotion it's going to be like easy right away. A lot of people people get kind of discouraged right away because they see their peers who were once their friends, or whatever the case is, and then now they're kind of like, they've kind of almost got this chip on their shoulder now about you moving up. And I'm like the best way though to earn that respect is just like, I always say, it's just like, be willing to do whatever, like never be, the one thing I always say is always be willing to do anything you ask anyone else to do, like show that, like lead by example kind of thing. And then from there you can start growing that. And I think that's where that respect will come in your peers. And then obviously if you're managing people and as a leader, and then your followers respect you, that's going to make your job as a leader far easier when you actually have that respect. So yeah, I think I think there's like definitely two varying levels of respect that we're talking about here.
Yeah. At my job, one of like the first, I guess, messages that we heard was about treat people with dignity and respect, because you never know at one point who's going to end up being your boss. Mm-hmm. And you could be in like, it could be the opposite, you're not the one who becomes the leader. It could be your peer. And now if you have some kind of weird tension with them, that can reflect badly on you now that they're like the superior. So I feel like that's like your safest option, is just treat people with respect.
It's going to make your life way easier if you're
and be genuine about it, because people aren't, and you can see right through those people too.
You can see absolutely right there. Yes, exactly. Definitely not saying go through the motions and and just like do the right things, like definitely be genuine about it. But and like you said, people can see through disingenuousness, if that is a word. Is that a word?
It is.
That sounds good to me. Sounds good. I think it is. I'm gonna be confident on that. All right. Okay.
Which is actually, I'm sitting here looking at my important values, my 5 most important values. And I have to say, one of the ones that I did not put on this list, but totally value immensely, is that authenticity.
Authenticity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have one that kind of, I think when I was making this list, I think there were some that I was writing down that almost felt like they could almost be the same thing, but they were not. Like, has everyone shared all 5? I know was respect. Okay. I know, because I got mine pulled up now here. So,
well, go ahead. Right. Just, launch into it. Let's hear them.
We can all just shoot one off of another, kind of talk about it.
I love it.
And I forget if it said in any specific order of what. I think it did kind of say to rank what's kind of most important to you, I think.
That was hard.
And this might change by the end of our conversation, all of us. I think it might be flopping around. And but I put this as my fifth one, but this kind of, I think, goes along with the authenticity. But I put, I guess, openness, just being transparent. Transparency, I think, is really big. And I think that kind of falls into the line of, like, we talk about, and we've already had so many courses in OGL about communication, how communication is such a big thing. I think openness is a big, goes a long ways into creating, like, strong communication. If you can be transparent, if you can just really, sometimes we're afraid to tell how we feel about something. We're afraid of how it's going to make someone else feel, or whatever the case is. Obviously, you don't want to hurt other people, but I think in the long run, typically, most people learn that being open and transparent is the best thing to be.
And I think you're totally right that is in that same vein with authenticity, for sure.
Yeah. I put down integrity. I think it goes along with authenticity. Just because I've always thought of it like do the right thing when no one's looking kind of idea. So if you have integrity, I feel like that shows that you are a genuine person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys, I did not put anything like that.
Let's hear one of yours. Yeah. I think we want to hear it all the same.
I have to say, I'm shocked. I'm sitting there looking at this thinking, okay, which one? Well, I put truth seeking, searching for what is in accordance with fact or reality. Because for me, it's all about, that's my way of trying to take the emotion out. If it's getting too emotional, is okay, let's get back to center, which is the facts, the reality. Where are we really at versus how we're feeling?
That can kind of go with being like you seek transparency, and I'm sure you're able to give that back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the closest we're going to get to that. I'm surprised because, again, authenticity is one of those big ones for me. And I totally agree that the transparency, integrity, all of that is in that same vein. Maybe that is what I'm looking for in truth, but I'm always the one who's like, hang on a second, let's get back to the facts. Here's what we know.
Well, that's what you hit on it when you were talking about truth seeking, is you said, and a key word you said in there is like emotion. And I see it all the time where I think people, like, you're encouraged and, you should be able to express emotion, but at the same time, sometimes you do have to step back and you have to realize, like, are my emotions getting in the way of the truth of something, like you said? And I think that's so important, because I think that really, if you let emotion overcome you, it's going to skew so much of what reality actually is. And I think truth seeking sometimes can be kind of like in some ways it can be kind of harsh, because if you're feeling an emotional way, you don't want to be told, or you don't want to accept the truth of something. But I think truth seeking, it's probably a very practice quality. Probably all these are take practice in its own sense. And to be
in the different leadership roles that we take, right? I mean,
yep.
The way that you are with maybe like the sorority or in a book club or something like that, versus how you are on a project where you're being, compensated. They look different. What's interesting is another one that I selected was boldness, a willingness to take risk and act innovatively with confidence and courage. So I think that combination is probably where we really get down to that, being transparent, acting forward with integrity, right? I mean, in order to uphold those ideals, you have to sometimes be incredibly courageous and bold.
Absolutely. Which is probably easier said than done too in a lot of scenarios, is especially when you're and at least working at Starbucks is somewhere where you work really close with people, like, all the time. And so, you do get close to people. It's inevitable or not. You try to sometimes distance yourself from people. You try to not but it's when you're around these people 40 hours a week, and for most of us, your job becomes like your second home outside of home. And it is sometimes, as sad as that sounds, it's like sometimes we do not want that to be the case, but like it's just how it is. We spend so much time, it's like at least 25% of our life, 30% of our life is there. So it's going to have a huge impact. But like being able to put that aside, and like the relationships, friendships you might have people, and still being able to act, like you said, boldly and courageously, because I think sometimes that can get in the way.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to offend people. You don't want to, yeah. And so you have to hope that, and hopefully those people respect you enough as well, and come to an understanding of what you're doing, and I mean, yeah, exactly. One thing I had written down, this is actually my very first thing, which kind of goes in a completely like different vein of actually what we're talking about. Mine was my number one value at the time was inspiration, and more specifically I guess it's more a quality. It's a value, as you said, but a skill in its own way too. It's really important to me to be able to positively inspire people, and inspiration and influence all in the same thing, inspiring and influencing others in a positive way. That's a value that I think is like super important to me. In one way, I've had people where you have your more pessimists in life naturally, and you have your more optimists. And I've been able to I do tend to be a little bit more of a natural optimist. And I have had worked with people before where I've definitely feel like I've reached out and tried to create this influence and this inspiration to, some people come to say at work with like just a negativity. They have this pessimistic view every time they walk in, and trying to create this inspire them to be a little bit more looking on a more positive side, and being it, because when you do that, you begin to see that person's effectiveness, how they treat others, everything improves when they're not that. So to me, that value of being an inspirer is like definitely very important to me.
I mean, that's leadership, right? Creating the vision, upholding the vision, instilling the vision, right? I mean, that's
I didn't even think of it. That's like it's funny. That's like you're right. That's like the absolute like epitome of why someone's a leader.
Even when I look at the people that I have been the most drawn to follow, it is those ones that are constantly inspiring. I mean, especially when you're in the ditch, and you're just like, how are we going to manage our way? And they find a way to get everybody to rally.
Right.
Like that is for most people, in my opinion, what sets you apart as a good leader.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're right. That's probably what makes leaders rise to the surface, and
you can tell anybody what to do.
Right. And I think there's some people, who at times maybe fancy them. Like, we've learned that all, because I'm kind of, and this is a very interesting thing, by the way, just kind of going off, but I think it would be interesting to get your guys' opinion on this. We've read a lot through OGL about, are you a natural born, or do you believe that there are just like simply natural born leaders, or do you believe people can be created? And the funny thing about it is I think most people would probably all hinge on, yes, like you can learn to be a leader, like everyone can learn to, but I still sometimes think that there's people I've met in my life who there's just something about them that goes beyond just something that you would learn like and I think a lot of times like out of a book, or learn like and I do believe that others can become good leaders from learned, but I think in some ways I do have this belief, and I don't know if I've confirmed it yet or not, but that you can have really great leaders, and then you can have just this ever so slightly above tier of people who are natural born leaders, but who also learned and expanded and sharpened their skills as a leader. And because, like I said, I've just like met people in my life who is just like, yes, they're checking off all the boxes of what makes a good leader, like on paper, like textbook, but there's just, and it's hard to place, but there's something about them that their just ability to inspire and get other people like, or to like lead other people and inspire other people into action, that it's just like, and it feels like it's coming from somewhere different than just like what can be learned in a book. And I don't know what you guys feel on that.
It's funny that you say this, because one of the values that I put forward is altruism, the belief in or practice of disinterested and selflessness concerned with the well-being of others.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is the element that makes a leader,
Mm-hmm.
is this idea that this is going to be better than us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We are here to do something bigger and better than who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what differentiates the people that check the boxes versus the one that provide the vision of doing something that is altruistic and for the betterment of as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely.
think that's the defining factor.
Absolutely. Because I think there are people who are in leadership roles who, like I said, do the right thing, can do the right things as a leader, but you know, I've seen people in leadership roles who probably don't belong in leadership roles. We've probably seen that before, who've been pushed into it. So, yeah. Altruism, I like that. I actually like your list quite a bit, Dawn. I know you were like, at first you made it sound like you were just
totally off.
Like totally off with what you wrote, exactly. And then I was like, no, these.
Authenticity, I mean, of all things to forget.
Oh yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah, right. Daniela, maybe another one on your list.
Yeah, let's hear another one, Daniela.
I put, well, one that's a little different maybe is determination.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have kindness. I don't know if respect and kindness kind of go hand in hand, but I feel like maybe you are able to differentiate those. But kindness and determination, I think those are going to get you places above a lot of other. I don't know. Your question about, is leadership innate? I feel like the one there, we can learn everything, but I feel like the one thing that you can't necessarily learn is charisma. And maybe that's part of kindness. I don't know. Not everyone can be kind, and not everyone can be like genuinely kind. And I feel like a lot of time that sets you apart from another person, is because, being able to make decisions for your team, understanding a project, all of that, those are things that you can learn and you have to learn to be a good leader. But then there are personality traits, I think, that are a little harder to gain. And those are the things that set you apart from any other leader. So I threw in kindness and then determination. I feel like without determination, you're not going to be motivated or anything. So I put that one in there too.
Which you, yeah, that's absolutely right. Charisma, you are absolutely right, I think that is a very big defining aspect, because you can have some of the most knowledgeable, well-rounded people. And sometimes those people, like for example, in like the tech industry, if you're making like a really good computer or whatever the case is, a lot of times you see the more informed, the more technically sound people, a lot of times aren't the leaders. Those are the people that the leaders are putting in that place to make sure. But it's the leader a lot of times, very often, is that extremely charismatic. Like look at typical presidents, obviously, but like, for example, Obama was extremely like charismatic. Like a lot of like, obviously the POTUS is probably one of the best examples of a leadership role in our country, be it for good or bad, which, whoever you are. But yeah, like
the charisma factor is totally there, right? I mean, it's not my brand of charisma. It's not something that I find attractive, but look at what people say about the current president. He's strong, right?
Right.
He doesn't
Exactly.
back down. I mean, in their minds, I think charisma is one of those that can be, the word can be manipulated.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if you look at like,
wasn't it Northhouse who talked about, you know, I think we can all agree that many people would think that Hitler was a leader, but would we say he's a good leader? Well, no, because at the end of the day, he did not have that altruistic component, right? It was not for good. It was for evil.
Because he had, you know, anything you read, like he was extremely charismatic, is what people said. Like,
look at how many people were willing to step aside while he slaughtered 6 million people. Like,
right. Or that, what was it? The Netflix had released that Ted Bundy, like serial killer.
Oh yeah.
And he was supposed to be absolutely like girls loved him, and he was like, and he was a mass murderer, you know, but he was apparently extremely charismatic and just knew how to sway people. So you are absolutely right. And I think we talked about it in our last video session about there is leaders who, you know, for good or bad, there's leaders who've definitely used that power and that ability for very bad things.
Yeah, because people want to say like a leader will change the world, but never necessarily says for good or for bad.
Absolutely. And there's been almost just as much bad sometimes, and there has been good with it. So,
and it's funny because one of the other values that I put on my list was equality, the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. Because for me, this is the critical component. And I mean, anybody who knows me always hears me give this speech about equity and equality and trying to help people understand that, you know, equity is really the critical component, because there can't be equality unless everybody has access. Equity is creating access, right? And so Hitler did a great job of putting something forward for a group of people, right? If we eliminate all of these people, then think of all the things you'll get. But that component of equity and equality amongst everyone's rights and their status in society, etc., I think that is what creates a good leader as well, is making sure that even the one who is cleaning up the mess when everybody else goes home is as valuable to the team as the one who is actually creating the product.
Absolutely. And I actually, one of my ones I wrote down, it should be right in that vein, is fairness. I mean, the same concept. So,
did you have some? Well, I mean, I think kindness, respect for individuals, like you were saying, Daniela. I mean, this is that same. It's funny because I feel like I'm writing all of ours down, and we all are using different words for the same concept.
Might as well be a thesaurus.
Truly, I suspect that if we were to look at these words and some of the synonyms, etc., we would find.
Absolutely.
What else did you guys have?
I think those were all of mine. I had honesty, but that one kind of goes in with integrity.
I have commitment.
See, and that's like a determination. So it's like
exactly.
Yeah,
right. Like that. Every single thing we have said, I think I've had at least one thing that would probably just go right in with it. Commitment, and then the other one I had was thoughtfulness, which probably goes all the way back to almost the very first thing we talked about, and like respect and such. I think.
Absolutely.
You know.
So Daniela, you had honesty, kindness, determination, integrity, and then did you have respect?
I had respect, yeah.
So are you guys ready for what my last one is? This is
absolutely.
Again, I just find this so intriguing because all of the things that you're saying, I do see them on my list as well, but I feel like the list I came up with is so much more clinical sounding. But resourcefulness, the ability to find quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties.
Yeah, I think your list is almost, I think it kind of reminds me more of like, they're the values, they're like the intangibles of like the skill set of a leader, almost like the, which all these are skills, but like if you pulled out your, like it's like your Swiss Army knife of things that like in a leader in action almost. It's like a lot of values of a leader in action at work, doing their thing, being resourceful,
Right.
which are also
I like that.
very, very great. I think they're all like, I do, I think me and Daniela's maybe was more like, comes from the humanistic side of leadership. And then yours, like you said, a little more clinical, but I think it's actually really great. I think that we all kind of brought that, or there's this blend of it. I think it's
fascinating, isn't it?
Right. Because I mean, they're all, no one, I don't think, can argue with any of these that like, no, that's not a good trait or anything. Those are all excellent things.
You know what's interesting is I wonder if it's my age and life experiences that had me travel this path of being a little bit more, like you said, looking at them as skill sets, or I said clinical versus that more personal component. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to say that it's jaded, but it's almost like.
Well, an interesting thought to think of then is like, if we're talking about kind of like the generational gap, probably, me and Daniela probably both grew up more in a, age where that's been so much the focus. And because everyone talks now about like baby boomer generation versus millennial, which
I mean, I'm 45. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 45. So like,
yeah, 29.
So, I mean,
25. Yeah.
Think about that. Like that is really fascinating to consider.
And I think that maybe a lot of that is based off of like our approach of how we're raised, because more of this millennial generation that me and Danielle fall into is like, you're more told like you're great, shoot for the stars, all such and such, and all these just very kind of like how our lists are created. Whereas like you said, yours is more clinical. And if I just think even about my own parents, I'd be yeah, but like your list would probably be more like something like what my dad would create.
Right? Like
absolutely.
I feel like that's an important note to make, especially because you both are going to encounter, as people are working longer, that you're going to be leading people that are older than you potentially, right? If you're not already.
Right. And I think it's super important that a lot of people, I think, want to make a push towards like all these ideals of the millennial younger generation, get that into the workplace. But I still think there's a lot of qualities that are from your generation that are so valuable, that would be and I'll say it now, like, and you know how there's that stereotypical thing that millennials aren't good workers, they're this, that. Well, sometimes, I would never sit there and just say like, I wouldn't fully get behind that statement. But I will definitely say there are plenty of, working where I work with a range of people, and I also work with a lot of younger kids, and man, it's really hard to like depend on them for accountability, to teach them accountability and such. So I think there's a lot of, your generation seem to be more like, you go to work, you work hard, accountability, you show up, like, you suck it up and you do it.
You just do.
Yeah, you just do it, which
you don't consider things like joy.
Right, exactly.
Or happiness.
Who needs it? Who really needs it?
I mean, I was always the one who was just like, hell yeah, I'm taking that job. It pays $10,000 a year more.
Right.
They're like, the work is horrible. I'm like, I don't work for fun.
Right. Yeah.
I work for money. But what I would also find really fascinating is, and I'm sorry to keep bringing up the sorority, but that's not something I ever did. And so I find it so fascinating. And you probably, Daniela, are talking to extremely young people. I mean, people that are just coming out of high school. And so I have to believe that experiment, I don't want to call it that, but you know what I mean, like of looking at the difference even now between you and them. Or Jason, like you're saying, I mean, you're probably working with 18-year-olds and looking at the difference between you and them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the generation gap, so to speak, is also, it's shorter in the number of years, but it's wider in a smaller number of years, right? Like
Yeah.
20 years between us, you still, we can still have conversation and dialogue, but you and an 18-year-old
Right.
might
Yes.
struggle,
Might
right?
struggle a little bit. Exactly.
So I feel like that's probably something that really needs to be considered in this concept of even how we look at the questions that we ask
mm-hmm.
in an LPI observer or in a template from SurveyMonkey. Like, obviously you wouldn't ask anything about age because that would be inappropriate, but I definitely feel like there must be sort of some way to flesh out people's values and recognize where they are in their life stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's that the values they put forward are reflective of that life stage, right? Which is
mm-hmm.
why mine are a little bit more clinical. Anyways, just a theory.
Right.
But when I was going through and thinking of an example of what I've done over the past few weeks that might sort of highlight some of these values,
mm-hmm.
what's interesting is, and this is of course one of those big areas of leadership in my life as a mother, but you know, a lot of times there'll be something going on at the school or with the kids, and you know, it's totally stereotypical where people will get together and just want to complain, right? They just want to whine about something. And I'm constantly this one that's like, I really can't listen to this. Like, I just can't do it. So I'm just going to take over.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
okay, let's try to reframe this, or what can we do to sort of solve the problem? And one of them is my son's really struggling at school, and it's because the teachers are just not nice. They just aren't nice. And these guys are still little and they want to be nurtured, right?
Yeah.
This is the story I'm telling myself, but then I'm sitting there coming home, reflecting upon it and thinking, isn't that actually what everybody wants? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it really doesn't serve any purpose to sit here and complain about someone not being kind. I think what's so important is to recognize that that is the key element. Kindness is everything. So even sitting here and complaining, wouldn't it be better if we just put a little kindness forward and went to the teacher and say, can I volunteer? Are you stressed out? Can I bring you a coffee? Like, she's yelling at them all the time, and there's all these punitive consequences. And I'm sitting there thinking, has anybody been kind to her? Or are we all just coming to the parent teacher conference saying you suck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. That's and I think, you know, and one thing you said was like, okay, someone comes and whines and you're like, okay, I'll just like take this over, which by the way is something at like in my workplace, if I ever have people like complaining about something, and this is not always, delegation is a huge like quality as a leader, being able to delegate. And this is one of the places that I need to work at. But I can often be like, when people are complaining, I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do it. I'll probably do it. My mindset at the time is I'll probably do it better, and on and on and on. I'll just do it. Like, you guys, whatever, do whatever you want. I'm going to do it.
Totally.
Like, which is like, you know, once again, delegation is a quality I need to get better at learning. But it's funny that you said, like, instead of just coming home and complaining about someone being mean, like, be proactive about it, right? And my friend had mentioned something. We were talking the other day about social media, and how he was like, when the Amazon was on fire, everyone was posting like the Amazon's on fire and putting on Facebook and posting about it being on fire. And he was like, if every one of those people who posted that or linked that just went out, instead of just getting on the computer and complaining about it, went out and planted a tree in place of doing that, then, you know, that would be a way more proactive solution than just like getting
Post.
angry about it and letting people read about it on the computer. Like, because if everyone's like, it's the whole, social media has created the whole generation of the keyboard warriors who are just like, they'll complain about issues, but then when you think about it, you're like, yes, they're creating some awareness, but then they're not actually but then after that, like, they're like, okay, I'm creating awareness, but then they don't do anything. And then those people read about it, they get angered by it, but then they don't do anything. And so everyone just kind of sits back and gets angry about it and nothing is done. So it's like if everyone just take a proactive approach and just go out and plant a tree instead of just or at least maybe you plant a tree and then you have the right to go post it or something, then you can go do it. Like,
do both, right?
Yeah, do both, right? Like, create an awareness and that. But he's like, I guarantee probably a lot of these people are just posting it and then go on with their lives. And it's like, it's that whole concept of, instead of just complaining about something, like, kind of at least put into action, and if you're gonna complain about it, then at least be proactive, and maybe that makes your complaining a little bit more, relevant.
I hate social media.
I do too.
I have not ever used Facebook because I literally despise it. But since being a student, there's so many organizations that are like, you have to get on Facebook. And I have to say, it's appalling.
Yeah. Oh man. I just don't understand. And I also don't understand the whole age of social media, and I guess the willingness that people are of what they put out there to the world. And like, it's one thing to share your feelings, but it's another thing to just this is some of the things I see of just like, wow, like, this is just insane. Like, and I have to, we probably all have Facebook, at least for the, like, with groups and stuff, or like there's groups you have to be a part of and stuff for like information, and it's unavoidable, really.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it's bad.
But look at that as an example of leadership too. Like, for me, being in the fundraising business, I've always shunned Facebook, yet I encourage everybody to use it to promote the campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like I kind of waffled about that for a long time, thinking, ooh, am I being a hypocrite? But I feel like maybe that's part of what a good leader is supposed to do, is that there are going to be differences between you and your followers. And there's no good reason in my mind to not capitalize on that as a leader.
Absolutely.
But I would love to hear what you guys think about that, because I feel like that really ties in with this whole concept of integrity and transparency, because it's not like I say, I think Facebook is horrible and I don't personally use it. I say, you guys should post this on your Facebook page.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of inevitable, unavoidable. It's just the way the world is going to work now, if you like it or not. Like, that's something into motion, that promoting via the internet is
but
just.
Do you think that it is hypocritical
to
me as a leader?
No, I don't. Well, here's the thing. I think it's depending on how maybe you use it, because the reasons are you using Facebook for the reasons you hate it? The things that you're appalled by? I
literally never post anything.
Exactly.
I use it to get information, but yeah, I ask everybody, ooh, you should go post this on Facebook. Ask
here's a
donation.
If I got on Facebook and like ran across articles of like donations and such, and fundraising, I want to be like mortally offended by seeing that personally. That's not the bad qualities of Facebook that I see. I think the poor qualities are, number one, people who are trying to create their life to look like something that it's not, which happens all the time. Kind of this like facade. The tons of reposting of random things that I don't care about, one after another, which is all the time. But and then also just the overall negativity of like people post an opinion out there and then everyone flies to it and like starts attacking it and starts all this negativity in terms of like a keyboard fight between people, and I think that's the kind of toxic nature that is on Facebook. But no, I don't think, like, if you were someone who did that, and you were very active in being that and kind of doing those things, but then you said, I hate Facebook, or I'm appalled by Facebook, then I would say, okay, maybe that's something. But it sounds like outside of fundraising, no, I wouldn't say that's hypocritical. I think that's actually going back to one of your 5 qualities, resourcefulness.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you're using it as a resource.
Yeah, exactly. So
Touche.
Yeah. I think if anyone's hypocritical, it's me, because my values are honesty, and it's a highlight reel, and that's what I use it for. So I have one of those Instagrams that is pretty, and I'm happy all the time, and I'm wearing the cutest outfits and all of that. And is that really my life? No. So if anyone's hypocritical, it's me, but then I don't know, because I hate it. I hate that it's made me that person.
I understand, though. I absolutely understand the appeal of using it in that way, and the whole idea of, if you like literally, it sounds ridiculous, but like we get addicted to the idea of like how many likes you get on something on Instagram, like how many people go, and like you literally, like, that becomes and it's scientifically proven that's an addiction.
It's a dopamine push.
Yeah, and so
it's embarrassing to admit. So I feel like I would never want to. I don't know. It's like the person that you are on social media isn't the person you are in real life, and I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I'm also addicted to it. So,
but when you look at it yourself and you see yourself, does it make you happy and make you feel? No.
It makes me sad. It makes me feel like I'm lying, and I had to take a break from it. It was getting pretty toxic. I don't actually I don't know. I don't really use it anymore. I deleted like Snapchat and Twitter and things like that, just because I feel like that's not the person that I want to become, and that's the person that I'm showing. So I don't know. Social media is a tough subject.
But
I will
like
say
the whole millennial generation. I hate that I'm a millennial, but I don't know. It's part of our culture.
I would say, though, like, of course, as much as you say you indulge in Instagram and stuff, it's still like anyone who actually knows you does know that's not you. So there is the important part to, I think, remember that anyone who like actually knows you and probably cares about you knows who you are as a person. And so to them, like maybe what you're putting up there isn't important because they know who you are. So, yes, as much as maybe it's like a facade of what you're saying is not who you actually are, at least the people in your life who are, because half the people you get on Instagram you're getting likes from are like not even people you probably even care about that much. That's the thing. Yeah, or even know, for that matter. So really, at the end of the day, it's just like, at least the people that you do know and care and love about the most at least know who you are. So that's important.
That's true.
And do you think possibly like being in a sorority that kind of like that definitely helps? I mean, I guarantee a lot of the other girls in your sorority are kind of definitely like very centered on social media too, I would assume, right? Yeah, so it's very much that kind of probably influence around there of that too. But and it doesn't make anyone a bad person, like, at all, for doing it. Like, because I know some really, really great people who like Instagram like is a big part of their life, like, absolutely, and they're not a bad person at all. So
it's so interesting, though. I mean, maybe I'm far-fetched on this, but don't you kind of feel like it's the same as a resume? I mean, not everyone tells the truth on the resume, but they make themselves look damn good.
Mm-hmm. I'm the queen of Excel on my resume. I use it.
And I guess I feel like there's this element of being resourceful that does not have to conflict with being authentic or moving forward in an integrity, right? I mean, it's not like you're going out there and saying, I know how to work on jet engines.
True.
it's something that you can teach yourself, and with practice you will get better at. Excel is what I'm speaking of. And I feel like with Instagram or any of those, I mean, an addiction is an addiction, and putting that aside, the purpose of it can be really, again, that resourcefulness. And also, when you don't have it and everyone else does, it does put you at a disadvantage. And I get that now.
It's great for making connections. It absolutely is. Absolutely, like networking. Like it is
What it was for.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Well, it was a for hot or not originally, right? Like that's what Zuckerberg set up Facebook to be, the hot or not list, which is, of course, why I have always fundamentally just hated it, because I was like, how misogynistic and disgusting.
we learned about that on the movie, right? The Social Network, didn't they? Isn't that they like highlighted that? Or I mean, you probably read it. Did you read his biography? Like the movie, The Social Network. I know there was supposed to be a rating system.
That's right.
All right, yeah.
And so for me, I thought it was so gross, and I was just totally upset by this. But at the same time, don't you feel like that's what is happening? I mean, that's why coming up with a list of your most important values is going to constantly be something you have to keep on your radar, so that you stay in the present.
Right. Yep. And I think social media aside, and this is what frustrates me a little bit, is the internet can be used for like so many like time wasting things, a lot of things that you could be spending time about. But at the same time, the internet is like such an amazing resource that all of us can take advantage of, in the sense of you can literally now teach yourself things that you would have had to go to school for before. You can literally teach yourself how to almost do like anything, just by using the internet. I'm into motorcycles, and so I have like a 1978 Yamaha motorcycle that the engine basically the engine blew up. This was like 3 years ago or something, and I had no idea I was going to rebuild it, because I love the same. Like, I'm just going to rebuild it. I had no idea how to do it, but through enough of forums online and videos and everything, I literally went in and learned how to take this whole thing apart, put it all back together. Probably took about, I don't know, all in all like a month, because I had to get parts shipped and stuff. But if I lived in 1970, I would have been either reading from a book, which would have been very unspecific, but I was able to completely like rebuild it. And now I can literally say like, I probably have a good knowledge of rebuilding engines now. And people go to school for that.
Yeah.
So it's just like the resource that it allows you is just like, it can be used for such good things. And that's why I'm kind of like, I see people there sit around and like, have you guys done the PowerPoint, by the way, yet? I mean, you probably had turned it in, right? The PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And like I'm not very big on the whole meme thing. Like I'm not very big on that. But I'm like, but I get it too. I get the humor, and I'm sometimes someone shows me one and they'll laugh. But I know people who'll sit down for 2 hours and just look at one after another, and I'm like, just think about what you could have done on the internet, even on the internet, that would have been like, you would have taught yourself something. Instead of like,
but I think that's why this module for me is the one that I am most interested in and really digging in, because this concept of moving forward in your life, constantly thinking of your values, is what guides you through the internet, or conversations with people that you may not agree with, or going places you really don't want to go, but you really feel like it's what you're supposed to do. If you're constantly, addressing your values and moving forward with those in your heart and in your mind, it makes a difference.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it probably is a good quality as a leader, especially for me and Daniela going forward, at our age and the leadership roles we'll take forward. Like it probably is good to be savvy with these social media things, like to know and be aware of them.
Do it. Like that would be a disservice to yourself.
Yeah, like we need to know these things, these
As do
tangible.
I, which is why I'm constantly focused on it, because I'm just like, I hate this, meaning that I don't want to give it any attention and time, yet everyone around me is using it. And they're people that I want to engage with that use this. So
yeah. And like we said, everyone, like, you're still a good person, even if you're using, it's literally just kind of like how we feel about social media, but it's doesn't, like, some people indulge in it more than others and some don't, and it's just what it is. So
I feel like we covered everything. I'm just looking at the time and being mindful of that.
Yeah, we're at 5 over right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like we covered everything? Does anybody want to talk about anything else or have any other questions? I think the rest
of the conversations, I you know how we have to write the paragraph or whatever, I like described both of you and stuff, and the professor was like, why does it sound like you're having so much fun? I'm like, because I am.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm like, shoot, I could I like to talk, number one, which is, I don't know if anyone's picked up on that. I'm long-winded, but yeah, I could sit down here and just like probably talk for 3 hours and not even like realize. Right.
It's so helpful too, because so much of this online schooling is about trying to take all this information in and synthesize it into something that's useful. And I feel like this is where we, peer reviews. I love the peer reviews because it's that way to connect with another human and say, did I get this right? Or here's my observation.
Right. And I think one good sign of probably everyone in this chat room right now is being like, has the potential to be really good leaders, is just the fact that we can like all sit here and not know each other and chat face to face. And now it feels so comfortable for somebody. And I think that goes into that personality traits that you were talking about before, Danielle, of being charismatic, being probably sociable. Like if you were someone, I know plenty of people who this would be a nightmare for them to do, sit here for an hour, like, and so I think, I feel like that would, I think this is a really good thing, because I think this would definitely probably weed out the people who are like, okay, I'm not cut out for this. It makes sense that we're all here and we're able to do these like video conferences, and I would guess all feel pretty comfortable, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week, are we doing
Thursday?
Thursday, I think, is our usual, yeah.
And we're going to do 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
5, okay, yep.
And this is just working, so we're just going to keep doing this. I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing, okay?
Yeah.
5
Thank you.
If you have any trouble in SurveyMonkey or just want to talk about anything, you guys, shoot an email. Just use our little email thread and put anything in there you want.
Okay, thank you.
Or put together something and run a test and send it to me.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. Did you guys have
any trouble?
Did you guys have any trouble with your PowerPoint when you were doing that?
It was not an hour. It didn't take me an hour.
Yeah, way shorter, you mean?
No, he said it was an hour, and it took me like 3.
Oh yeah.
I was lifting quotes out pretty quick, because he just literally, I mean, from my it was just they wanted you to lift quotes out of specific modules and then kind of elaborate on what it means to you. And then the more part, I was like, having to put on all these like random pictures and stuff like that. I was like, I wish I didn't have to do all this, but
yeah. It'll be fun to see those. Maybe next week we should even compare. Well, I think we are supposed to do peer reviews coming up or something like that. But anyways,
okay,
I'll look at those directions a little bit more, but maybe the 3 of us could just swap anyways. And
because that acts as our final project, right? Ultimately, that's our collection of
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate these conversations, and I'll look forward to next week.
Yay! Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween! Have fun!
Bye.
See you guys.